Okay, welcome to the first virtual documentation sprint of the ERPNext community. This meeting today is to help you get an overview of how we want to use the wiki platform at wiki.erp.next. And it's going to take about 60 to 90 minutes. There's going to be plenty of room for participants to ask questions if you want so. And on top of that, I will give a quick rundown of what this platform is about, why we want to use it, and how you can use it yourself. As with a lot of wikis, I think this is not going to be a super quick project, but it will grow slowly with contributor over contributor. So I'm thankful for every one of you who joins in and writes in the wiki. Let me start with sharing my screen here real quick. And then I can explain a little. Okay, so now you should be able to see my screen with the ERPNext.org documentation. It's available at wiki.erpnext.org. It could be helpful if I decrease the resolution of my desktop. Should have done that earlier. Let's see. Stefan, can you help me? Is that still viewable and font got a little bit bigger?
Yes, it's still viewable.
Yeah, okay. Maybe even better. No, that's worse. Let's take 1080p. Okay, so that should be fine for us. Depending on your monitor's resolution, you'll have different views here. As said, this is available at wiki.erpnext.org. It's still pretty basic. The software behind that is Atlassian Confluence. And I have created a page to prepare today's webinar or workshop, however you want to call that. Where I have set up today's event and also the next two events that we plan to do. And I've also set up an agenda. So I would want to show and explain the platform and its goals. I would want to make sure that those who participate here or that watch the video know how to register with the user, and then ultimately want to start working on content. I do think that the first two steps will only take a couple of minutes, maybe 20, maybe 25 minutes. And then number three is what I'm planning to do for a longer time. It could be that I'll cut that out of the recording later because it's not as interesting. That depends a little bit on our discussion and the interaction that we'll have.
Okay, I already started the registration.
Yeah, okay. And did it work?
I'm still typing my email and.
You can do that in parallel. I'll try to explain some goals and what the platform's about. So yes. That's number one here. So basically, what I'm trying to do is I would want to help the community to be better visible, to create more content that we have today, to be better visible on search engines. So if people search for stuff around ERP systems, I would want the ERPNext community to surface a lot, especially for situations where, let's assume like a lot of people who joined are German. I think actually everyone from the participants is speaking German. So we could have this very same session in Germany. The problem is we have almost no content in German. So if you're pursuing a search on google.de with a German search term around ERP, it's very unlikely that the ERPNext community will surface, although we're producing massive amount of contents through discuss.erpnext.com every day. And one of the goals of this project is to get some sort of content in the German language as well, and hopefully maybe even in Indian language or French language or Spanish or whatever you speak as a mother tongue. The wiki platform itself is agnostic of the language that we're using, and it doesn't grow bad if more people use it in different languages. So I assume that the majority of the content that we are going to be creating will be English, but I myself come from Germany, and I do have a specific interest in growing the German community. So I will be adding German content to this platform as well. And I hope that other people from the German community will also help adding German content. There is some ambiguity in every platform that is creating content, because the question is always like, is this the right platform? Shouldn't this content live on GitHub? Shouldn't this content live in the official ERPNext documentation? Is that now a replacement of the ERPNext documentation? Can't we have all of this content in discuss.erpnext.com? I will not dive into this topic here. I think as a community, we're gonna be way better off if we have more content that is available, so that new users and people who evaluate which platform to use have more entry points to contacting service providers, to getting in contact with ERPNext users, asking questions and so on, or maybe even answering their questions by the content that we post. That's obviously the ultimate goal. I don't think that this video needs an introduction to what Wikipedia is and why a wiki can be a good platform to create content. And I hope that when we look at the software itself, it will explain itself as well, how this can be an iterative process where we start with an empty page and have a very interesting and rich assortment of very specific content for specific use cases in the end that are of high value of newbies in the community. So that would be the goal. Let me share my screen again and check whether I really talked about this. So we want to create more content, be better visible in search engines, get more contributors from the business side. I had a longer discussion with Gunnar, and I'm very happy, Gunnar, for you to join. Thanks a lot for being part of this. I know that we had a longer discussion about the underlying platform here is a commercial platform, and there is some, there's always alternatives. Obviously, there's also open source wikis out there, and we've been discussing that. And why I'm highlighting Gunnar here is because he said in other places, it's difficult for me to chip in with technical contributions on GitHub, as in code, for example. So he funded an issue that we were talking about and set out a bounty for someone who would resolve an issue. And it's very similar situation for me. I can't code. I'm not a programmer. And although I try to become more technical over time. I'm not at this point. And this wiki platform is a way for business users to contribute to the ERPNext community without knowing any code. And so I'm hoping that if you're looking at this video or you have joined this call, that you will feel inclined to join in yourself as a contributor, although you may only be able to write text as I can. I think that from a documentation standpoint, at this point, my goal is not to replace the official ERPNext documentation, which is actually written by Frappe. In 95% of the content was written by Frappe employees. And although we started to copy a lot of those content, Frappe continued to evolve their documentation on a GitHub-powered documentation that they generate. And so I think the documentation stuff that we create should be more of a use case angle, like not so much feature driven. This is the feature and it does this and this and that, but more of I am in this specific situation. Where do I find the right documentation? Where do I find help? How do I integrate with other tools and those things? And this is probably not as exact science as a documentation, because for a feature documentation, there's probably only one way to correctly document how a feature works. For use case documentation, it's probably also possible to have an option B and an option C. And that's also something where Confluence is very strong at, when we can start discussing and have alternatives and use these community features in the platform. Are there questions from you about the goals and the foundations of this so far?
Not so far.
Okay. Everybody else, can you hear me? Is the audio and the video okay?
I can hear everyone, and I don't have any questions thus far.
Okay, cool. Then let's just
go. I can hear too.
Yeah, cool. Even in India, it's working. Actually,
yeah.
People told me that the Wi-Fi is bad in the place where I'm sitting in the office. So if something should break up, please tell me.
Sure. But as of now, it's all good. I can hear you. I can see you. All good.
Yeah. Okay. So also, just for people who may be asking themselves, is this something that RuShop and Frappe will support? The platform itself wouldn't be available if Frappe wouldn't have provided the subdomain. So wiki.erpnext.org is obviously something that Frappe has to configure and to provide, which they did. And also the platform itself needs a so-called license for the software so that we can use it for free as a community. And Frappe had to provide a certificate of the ERPNext Foundation to be a charitable organization, which RuShop did, so that we could obtain a so-called community license of Confluence, which is going to be perpetually free. So we will not have to pay anything for the platform. The platform is hosted on servers of Seabed Media. So the company that I work for is paying for the hosting. That is also free, so we don't write any invoice to anyone for that. But this is not a lock-in effect. So the platform that we're using is an installable software that will run on any Linux or Windows or even a Mac computer. And so it could be hosted by Frappe or anyone else in the community just as well. Okay, so let me go on with sharing my screen and going over basic concepts. So if you're a newbie, or may I ask, like, who of you is new to Confluence and who does know the platform already? Can you chime in real quick?
I'm
Or-
totally new to it.
Okay.
New.
Same here. I haven't used Confluence before.
Yeah, okay. So please excuse that I only have a German picture here, but I think the picture itself is international and you just omit the language. So there's a dashboard in Confluence that is kind of like the starting page. I'm going to show it to you real quick or in a minute. And then there are so-called spaces, what we call Bereich in German. And those spaces, they act as their own world. So they can have rights, they can be protected, then they can have different admins who will then have the ability to give other people rights or change stuff. You can export stuff and so on. So at this point we have, and then in these spaces, you have a portal page for this space and normal pages. All of these pages are technically the same, but they can be in a parent-child dependency so that you can have a hierarchy of pages that are semantically connected. So for example, you could say, this is about the CRM module, and this is about selling, and this is about quoting, and this is about email importing, and so on. And all of this would have the parent page CRM, which would have the parent page English ERPNext documentation. Let me show you in, yeah.
I
sure,
guess you can move pages around between
freely
spaces or make them a space from being just a page and stuff.
I'll show you later. Like if you look at the left-hand side here, where I'm hovering over with my mouse, I have created a page called ERPNext Virtual Documentation Sprints. And then I have created sub-pages, which are actually not in the right place here. So they are sitting as child pages under this parent page, but from a semantic standpoint, it's not the right parent page. So one of the things for our tasks later for you will be to move them somewhere else and help me create a better structure. And this is always and easily available as a feature. I'm going to introduce you to that later. Let's start with the beginning. So this is the dashboard. So whenever you click on the logo on the left-hand side, upper left-hand side here, you will go back to the logo, to the dashboard. And the same goes if you type wiki.erpnext.org, you'll also always go to the dashboard. The dashboard doesn't seem to change a lot at this point, depending on if you're logged in or not. Let me show you real quick how this looks when I'm not logged in. But you will see at a later point, especially if we should ever have content that is restricted, that the experience of the dashboard is fully personalized. So you can only see what your user is allowed to see. We're using this wiki platform as a website just as well, so that at this point, every thing that you're writing in these spaces will be available to the public. And it's one of the goals to be better visible in search engines, so it should be that way. And at this point, I have no intention to have rights protected spaces, but it could be that we at one day want to have that. Let me log in again. So by the way, if you didn't do that, it's going to be a part of a later step. If you're on a dashboard, there's a link called Getting a User is Quick and Simple and Free of Cost to Register Now. If you click here, you'll get to this form. And for me, this is German because my browser is German. But if Raj, for example, accesses this page, it should be in English form. And you have to type in your name, your email address, your username, a password, and repeat the password, and then register. And then you get a user. As I said, it's free. And then you can log in. I've saved those login credentials in my browser already, so I only have to click on login. And then you can see by the image of myself up here, I'm logged in as a user now. It's a very similar list that you see here. So on the dashboard, you can see what has been recently worked on. You can look at what you recently visited yourself as a user. This is obviously only available if you're logged in. And you can save stuff for later, which is not that important for us. And if you click on all updates, you see what we have seen as the anonymous user as well. For example, Stefan changed something at German documentation 12 minutes ago. And if I wanted to see that, I could click on view change and see that change. I have no idea what it is. Maybe it's
it was nothing.
Maybe you just clicked a checkbox.
Just test it.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, and one of the things that I changed recently was this virtual documentation sprint page. And this is now part of a space. And this space is called About and Community. And the page has a name, ERPNext Virtual Documentation Sprints. And it's the child page of the portal page of this space, which name is about this documentation and the community. And this was the very first video that Mario and I recorded, actually in the very same room that I'm in right now, to show how we set it up. And there's a small microblog here where I could just started the first documentation sprint. I'd say this is something somewhere between Telegram and the forum. I have no idea whether this microblogging will be anything that we are going to be using in the wiki. I'm just showing this to you right now. People could, maybe Stefan does me the favor and clicks like here later. But it could be a way for us to document stuff that we are doing on this platform. Apart from the About community, I've also created a space called English Docs and a space called German Docs. If Raj, for example, would want to create an Indian language documentation, we could create a new space here, and you could knock yourself out with creating your own language documentation. I would ask everyone who views this video and participates in this session today to refrain from putting stuff in this documentation that is not documentation. So what I think what can go in here is everything about use cases, like I'm a hospital, how can I use ERPNext? I'm a taxi driver company and I have 50 taxi drivers, how am I gonna use ERPNext? That could go into the documentation in my opinion, but how does the ERPNext foundation work should not be part of the documentation because it's not relevant for an ERPNext user. The reason why I have created those 3 different spaces, and let me go up here, there's this navigation element will give you access to different portals, and one is the space directory. So we have those 3 spaces at this point: About community, English documentation, German documentation. And the reason why I've separated those is we may want to export this to other formats. For example, Wolfram could export the German documentation to an EPUB file and then put it on a Amazon Kindle of one of his customers so that they can read the documentation of ERPNext in German. Or he could export it to a PDF file or to an HTML file. Or Gunnar would set up a open source wiki, which rocks much more than Confluence. Then he may want to export an XML export of the German space to import it into his wiki and make it available there. It would be very helpful if the spaces for documentation would actually only be used for documentation. And if you're testing something, or you want to mess around, or you just want to discuss something, or you have a concept, or anything else, like almost all of the stuff that we want to do should be under About and Community. I'm sure that we'll have more spaces one day, but at this point, this is what I've come up so far.
Martin, quick question.
Sure.
This is so the English documentation, the German documentation is that what I would understand as a manual to the software ERPNext. How would I use it? Putting in the use cases. There is, between the two, there's no connection. It's not an English one where I take a certain field and translate it. It's a completely different book, if you will.
Yeah, this is working like a Wikipedia. So there's no technical connection between the pages in the space German documentation and the pages in the English documentation. However, there is the possibility to have a cross-linking between the same articles. So you could say you're on the email import section of ERPNext in German, and this is available in English as well. So you'll see that there is an English version, and you can click on the link, and then you'll get to the other page. And on this page, it'll tell you, look, there's a German version of this page. It's exactly the same way that Wikipedia is running.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm experiencing this a lot after I'm a rare cinema goer. But if I go to the cinema, like for the Joker film, for example, recently, I'm always reading the Wikipedia articles on the film afterwards. And the English article is always so much more detailed and better than the German ones. But still, I always read the German as well because it's quicker for me. And also I want to know like how much has translated. And sometimes you get other aspects and they're totally out of sync. So there's no, like, the aspects that people talk about these movies are so different. And the challenge that we have here is we are an open source community. You may only have energy for the German documentation after all, because you're going to earn money with that as you're a service provider. So people will buy ERPNext from you. So you have an incentive to give them a good manual. And I think that the wiki platform from the very get-go will give you a very good start, as we have copied over all of the German content. And I assume that what Frappe has done in the recent weeks didn't influence the German documentation at all because they don't speak German. So we're good to work on the German documentation directly on the wiki. A challenge at this point is still that Frappe is not working on this wiki at this point. So they are still using GitHub as the source of their documentation. And there is no specific agreement between Rushab and me when he will change that policy. But at least he gave me the subdomain. He helped me obtain a license. And my assumption at this point is that we should prove that the community is willing and able to contribute to this platform in a significant way. And then I would grow more and more demanding to Frappe to ask them to join the effort. At this point, it's, I think Rushab has a very similar argumentation as Gunnar has. He says, why don't we use an open source wiki? And my basic answer was because it's only going to work if we're using Confluence, and that's what this video and call is about. Does that answer your question? Okay.
One question that comes up in my head is if let's say Frappe starts using the Confluence wiki as well, and you say you don't want to replace the official documentation, so that means that once they added a new feature and want to write about it in documentation, then they will work in two places. Then they will update their article in the official documentation on erpnext.com/docs, I think, and also update some article in the wiki page, right?
Yeah. This is not like, in my opinion, this is step number 4 or something. At this point, you're totally right. Frappe is writing their documentation on a different platform. So I would hope that at one point we could join forces and use the very same platform. But I also admit and respect that this is not the case right now. And everyone watching this video is also free to say, this is the wrong idea. I want to join the GitHub changes. Let me try, what was it, ERPNext.org?
No, erpnext.com/docs.
.com/docs. Yeah, manual in English. So you could go to this page, and then there's a link, improve this page. And then you're referred to GitHub. You have to log in here, and then you can, let me see, where is it? I think you can click here, edit. You can change the code and then propose these changes as a commit. And then someone can approve your pull request later. And then someone at Frappe has to publish it. And then it will be coming back to this page. I did that. It's been a very tedious process. I don't want to bitch around here, but it's definitely not meant to be the thing for business people like me. And I hope that after looking at how this works at Confluence, you'll understand why I prefer this platform. So that would be the overview of this element. And then there's also some background that I wanted to show you, but it's you can also forget about the next 2 minutes because it's much easier to understand this when we look at this in real. A Confluence page can have text, tables, layouts, macros, which are special features. It has a like button, it has comments, it has tags, rights, and also meta information that belong to the page. And then you can also store files that you attach to a Confluence page. Let's look at this in reality. To do that, I would want to prepare this a little so that you can work along. So the next step would be that you register with this platform. So I'm counting at this point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people who are not me. So what I would ask you to do right now is go to wiki.erpnext.org and click on this register now link. And then you should have a form. Let me show this to you again. It should look like this, but in your language. Then you fill out this form and click on register. To be perfectly honest, I have no idea whether you have to prove that this is your email address by getting to your emails and click on the link, but I think you can directly log in.
No, you don't have.
Yeah, okay, so you don't have to do that. So you type in your email, your name, your email address, your username and password, and repeat the password. And you can even use you don't have to use your real name. This is not really important for us. Actually, there will be some guidance and censorship from me and other people on the wiki. So if people upload naked women or explicit content or stuff that is not about ERPNext, I will feel free to just delete the stuff. And there's also some weird spammers who go through this process and create users. And I am prepared to delete those user accounts as well. So if you're a scammer watching this, try it out. But I hope that we'll bear this.
One step back, I got one question.
Mm-hmm.
To export the documentation as PDF, I tried it, but it always only exports the page I have opened. I started at the main page, Benutzerhandbuch Deutsch, and tried on the upper right.
So this
export.
is a special, oh, I should, hold on, let me log in again. So the German documentation, if you want to export this, you'll have to have special permissions. So exporting is allowed for Confluence users, actually. So if you have a Confluence user, you can export. I could change that by, let me do that real quick, just erasing this checkbox here.
I think you should change that because everybody should be able.
No, it should be possible, in my opinion, because we're an open source community. Everyone can do whatever they want, in my opinion. It's not protected content that we're creating.
Yes,
So,
that's what I meant.
Yeah. So I could allow this for anonymous users just as well. If you click edit permissions and say export, there's also no reason why we shouldn't be doing that. This is a space configuration. So we should be doing that for the English documentation as well. And then if you have this space, right, you can go to Content Tools and say export. And then you can say, I want a PDF file or XML or HTML. Then you can have a normal export, which would have everything, or you can have a custom export, and then it will create the table of contents. You can say, I want everything but website and customer portal, and then export this. We can run that. It could take a while. So it's 187 pages. It's creating that to an intermediate HTML and then converted it to a PDF file. There's actually apps that will help us improve the layout of this export. So out of those 187 HTML pages, it made 313 pages in PDF. And in 20 seconds, this should be done. I'll come back to this page. Can you confirm real quick that you have a user and you can log in, everyone?
Yes, can.
Yep, I can confirm that.
Anyone trouble creating a user? No? Okay, so I'll assume this is done. This is not yet done. I also you won't be impressed by the PDF export. It's the layout is functional, you could say. Okay, something that I would also recommend is that you install the mobile apps for Confluence Server at least, because with the Confluence Server mobile app, you can edit pages on the go. and that could prove helpful every now and then. I will show that later. Those people of you who have registered a user now and who are logged in could come to the ERPNext virtual documentation sprints. One of the things that Confluence can do quite nicely is search. So if you, for example, type in something like virtual, you'll find this page and can click it. Obviously, as this is a recently changed page, it will also appear on the dashboard. Doesn't matter how you get there. If you get there, you could sign up for today's event. And I see that Wolfram has done that for the 2 future events, which I'm very thankful for. And you could try this out to, yeah, okay, yeah, I see someone, Raj did it. And Raj is missing a picture. Okay, so let's skip the installation of the mobile app for now. And I would start creating content on the platform. At this point, I would again inject a short question. Do you have questions so far about the concept, about what I've said? Do you have objections? Anything not clear?
Do we technically need that everybody who wants to submit work has to have a user and password?
Yes, you have to register. We could allow anonymous users to change pages, but then my experience is that it's, I have been unable to get rid of all the spammers that will come with scripts and automatically add comments and change pages and put links to porn sites and so on the wiki. That's been a very painful experience because it lasts for, let's say, 2 or 3 months, and then it's an unbearable problem. Because you literally, everyone can write a script and change all of those pages in 5 minutes. And then we'll have to revert all of this. And it's...
No, because we have a backup.
Yeah, but in the meantime, Wolfram may have added useful content. So we can't go to the backup. And at the same time, I don't want to. At this point, I would assume we have to force people into registration. The registration is very simple, and you don't have to provide real data. As long as your contributions are worthwhile, we won't care.
Would it be possible to make this a bit easier to use the same credentials as you use for the ERPNext.org website?
Yeah, that's possible. So Confluence has a plethora of SSO and synchronization methods that we could use. And I'm pretty sure that Discourse and Confluence can run on the same, for example, LDAP source or something.
No, sorry, I meant ERPNext.org, not the forum, because we are on ERPNext.org, and there is
whatever user management you have, it can probably be connected to Confluence. It depends on what technology you're using for your user management, if it works out of the box, or if we have to code something. At this very moment, I think we have to justify that we can work and create significant content first, and then we can talk about how to make this easier. At this point, you have to register for ERPNext.org and for discuss ERPNext.com separately as well, right? They're not connected.
Yes, you have, and you also have to register separately for the translation and for the chart of accounts.
And for GitHub.
And yeah, well, GitHub is something different, but if you're on the same domain and have to register for several services,
yeah, unfortunately, this is the status quo right now,
yeah,
and I have no means to change that at this point. Okay, I assumed you all have users. And what I would want to do right now is to invite you to click on one of those links. Mainly, those are empty pages that I have created, and start going into those pages and make changes. Maybe with the first 2 or 3 pages, I'm going to be an example and show you. And then you can start doing that on your own. By the way, Confluence does offer concurrent editing. So why don't we start doing this together? So if you're on this page here, click on marketing to-dos, or just search for marketing to-dos in the search. Marketing. Here it is. And then you click the page and you get to the very same page. And then you click on the edit button. What you can also do, if you don't want to click the edit button, you can just click E for edit. And then I do see that Raj is in this page already. And now Gunnar joined and so on. Your positioning will be indicated by your letter and process recording of the first ERPNext implementation sprint. How about you guys add your own to-dos here, maybe with a link or something else? You can do so by just putting your cursor somewhere, hitting enter, then you'll get a new line, and then you can type some text. And you can format this text very similar to Microsoft Word. You can add links with this element here. You can add a table, and it's working all concurrently, as we can see. This to-do list that we're using in this wiki page is a very simple form of documenting stuff that we come up in a discussion that should be done. For example, I have to put this recording on YouTube, put in YouTube channel and link on page. And then I could say the page, and there's a lot of things that that you won't need in the beginning, but that will be very helpful the more you use the platform. And it's also part of the power of Confluence. And this is something that Atlassian is calling autocomplete. So depending on what you're writing, the platform will know that you want to do something special. For example, if I open a bracket, how do you call those brackets? Is it it's not a curly bracket, a curly bracket is something else. However, so this edgy bracket here will indicate that you want to create a link. And the page that I want to link is the virtual documentation sprint. That's where I want to put the video later. So I'll click this, and it'll automatically put a relative link to this page. I could also do other stuff. For example, a curly bracket will open the macro browser, and I could, for example, use a status macro that will open a macro editor. And then I'll have actually, this is not done, but you do. I think you get the image. So someone created an info box here, for example. And if I now wanted to update this page, I could just click update. It would say, oh, Raj and Wolfram changed something as well. I said, I don't care. And then here's the new version of the page. And everyone who goes to this page can click edit and can change it. For example, this is bullshit, so I'm going to delete it. And then I hit update again, while everyone else is still working. And this can go on and on. So the idea behind a wiki is that we can do quick and easy changes to different pages. And now, like, I could give you a very long introduction on what we can do with pages, but I would rather create content and let you. So there's, from this point on, there's two ways for you, or multiple ways for you to go along with this webinar kind of stuff. You can just watch me while I'm creating content and commenting this. You can interrupt me and direct me to your page where you have tried out something and it doesn't work. So you say, I want now to create a diagram. And how do I create a diagram? And then I'll go to this page and show you. Or you can just add your own content while I'm adding my content and put me on mute or something. You can just watch me. You can also drop out and create your content later when you want to do it. I hope that when you watch me, I'll be able to show you more. But basically, I would use the rest of the time, which is probably 20, 25 minutes, to actually create content and comment this a little. Is there anyone who wants to propose something different, or do you have a question right now? Someone?
I have a general question about the idea or approach on this idea of the wiki. Wouldn't it be maybe an idea to only put wiki stuff in here and not do any documentation in here at the moment, so there is no double books, so to speak? And maybe if this is a success, that there are many wiki articles which are not documentation but other stuff, then maybe a discussion may come up to switch the whole documentation over to one platform. Have you thought of this or talked about this with Frushab or someone?
May I comment on that?
Yeah, sure.
Gunnar, I think a later merging these things to a later point, I don't think that will be a very big problem. In a way, we're kind of turning around the whole forking system. So we're starting with small branches, and we'll bring it together to a good trunk in the later step, I guess. On my side, in my company, I use two different wikis, one of which is Bookstack, and another is the Doku wiki. And I use the different wikis for different purposes. And for me, this is just a further wiki that I can fill with certain stuff. And most features, I guess, this will probably be able to do markdown and everything. And it's a simple copy paste job to get it in there. And I think it will just evolve. And if it's the final platform or not, doesn't really matter.
My answer to
no, sorry. Well, what I meant, for example, if now somebody writes a manual entry in this wiki format about the item master, then we have two articles. One is on this wiki platform, which is a manual article about the item master, and then we have the existing article in the official documentation, and I mean this kind of situation.
In my opinion, this is a good problem to have. The challenge that we will have, and this platform isn't new. This platform has been created in July this year. Since July and today, Mario, Truss, and I from my company have been the only ones creating content. And I think Raphael has created some content as well. And that's it. So the challenge is not that we have a massive problem of duplication. Our problem is we have no contributions. So if my idea right now is to make an effort to change that, so that Wolfram and Gunnar and Mario and Stefan and Raj and everyone else starts registering their users and making changes and additions and contributions content-wise. And I'm happy, Gunnar, to help the content work of merging stuff later if we have duplicate content. This is a simple and easy problem to have. If we have the very same content on the same feature, the easiest thing we can do is look at both instances of the content and kill the instance that is worse. Or if we are a little bit more elaborate, we could join them. But this is not a technical problem. It's a editorial problem. You have to read it, you have to pick what is valuable, and then you have to join this. And a wiki platform is very capable of this process. The wiki itself, like this platform, wiki ERPNext.org, will have redundancies. It's the most prevalent and most pervasive problem that I see with wikis in general is the redundancy and the chaos that the platform creates in itself. Like
I agree. I think if it's in itself, but if it's in two different places and two different locations where people may look or not look, then I think it's maybe doing double work for some things, because some people will provide to the existing documentation, some people will work on the new platform, and so if we are in a phase where it's not yet decided how it will be adapted, and we have something in mind, also something in mind which is additional, like what you say, use cases or stuff like that, or maybe tutorials or something, and some stuff which may be duplicates, then I just thought it might be a good idea in terms to showcase what the platform can do, to not create duplicates, but to focus on the stuff which gives additional value. And then, let's say in worst case, then everybody would say, oh, the wiki platform does not work for the documentation, but it still has its place for the use cases and the how-to stuff. And then they could coexist, or maybe at some points people will say, oh, the wiki platform is from the format or from the how it works much more usable than the existing, and then the existing content may switch over. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, Gunnar, to answer your question directly and shortly, I have no intention to run any type of policy of what type of content gets into wiki or not. I do welcome everyone who wants to contribute to the platform, as long as the contribution is helping the ERPNext community to grow and to prosper. So whenever you do something that is good for the community, I will embrace your changes and be standing and clapping. And if it creates extra work for me or others, I'll happily join and do this extra work. Obviously, I don't want spammers, or I can imagine that we'll see service providers trying to put their ads on the platform, or some sort of ads. That's nothing that I want to host there a lot. But I think you can still see my screen, and I've loaded the contributors to the ERPNext.com project on GitHub, which is, and part of that is, this is the whole website, including the manual. And the changes that you see here are, at first, it's a limited amount of contributors, and then those contributors are mostly Frappe employees. So there is no activity outside the Frappe company on the public documentation right now. And you could say there are, at least within Frappe, there's a lot of activity. And let's see, I hope that I can change that with the wiki, that we get contributors from different companies. That would be awesome. Other questions? Okay, so then off we go. I'm gonna try to comment this a little, but as I said, I invite you to click your own links here and make your own changes. You can also follow along and change the pages with me together and see my changes live, just as you wish. Why not an open source wiki? This is something that Gunnar was asking me. And by the way, I have created a disclaimer for empty pages and stubs to have some content here, to not have a real empty page. Let's change, or there's a macro, it's called excerpt include. And if I delete this page will be totally empty. Easy. So now I'm going to start here, and there are a plethora of wikis out there, and some are even source. The main
Let's not make an advertisement for Confluence in here.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's a wiki. You can join and change the text. Okay, and then I want to have a link. And then if you want to have a link, you can just add the link as a URL, but you can also search or look at recently viewed pages. And in search, I want to search for software and then list of software that is used by the community. And that would now do it for me for this page. Now I click on this link. And then this is a new page, list of software that is used by the community. It's also linked in the agenda page. And this is now a table. So we're using GitHub. And this is commercial. And we're using discourse. And what are we also using? We're using WordPress. We're using Travis. It's commercial. And so on. What is pretty cool in Confluence is basically everything that you do is what you see is what you get. So you don't have to have any code. You can always inject code by going to the plus sign and then search for the macros, and then I could say markup. Hold on. Actually, I only know that if you hit the Control-Shift-D, insert markup, and then you can add Markdown or Confluence Wiki markup. So for example, Wolfram wanted to import Markdown, so you could insert it here, see the preview, and then hit insert, and it will show decently on your page. So that's very simple to get it in. It should also be available through the plus sign. Challenge is, here it is, markup. Yeah. So everything that you can do with clicks normally can also be done with a keyboard shortcut, which is also making things very simple. So for example, Gunnar, could you save the page with your changes real quick? Just click update. Then we'll get a message here that Gunnar just published the page. See here, Gunnar published this page. And if I now go to this page, it will say last modified by Gunnar less than a minute ago. And if I click on less than a minute ago, I can see the changes. So he changed commercial to proprietary. Terry? Yeah, that's correct. Sorry, my English is not good enough. So the green stuff is what he inserted, and the red stuff is what was deleted. And the cool thing about this is you also get this via email. So you can easily stay on top of changes without doing much. So if I would pull up my emails, I would get this as an email. I could just delete it or archive it because those are all good changes and I wouldn't want to change anything about that. But if now, for example, let me do this real quick. So let me get some picture on Unsplash, for example, this picture here. So I copy it and paste it here. Maybe a bit smaller. So now this wouldn't be such a good change to the page. So someone could go in here, see that change, go to the page history, and then restore an old version, which I'm going to do. And then it's gone. We can also, as someone else made, Stefan also made a change here. So I don't know what this was. So I'd rather not lose his change and kill my picture manually. But this is also a very strong feature of Confluence that you get these email notifications, a very good change highlighting, and then you can move on with your work as long as everyone is behaving nicely. So let me just go to other pages, a list of service providers. This is actually something that I think should fill faster than other pages. Okay, let's take, this is Raphael's company, right? Website address. I'll link that here. Web link. Country, Germany, city. I think he's in Dresden. Is that? Let me double check. No, but no. He's not. Maybe in the masthead. He's only offering his, okay. Someone should send him an Abmahnung. Yeah, okay. I think he's in Dresden. I don't know for sure. So it's customizing hosting.
Leipzig, as far as I know.
Ah, Leipzig. Okay. Yeah, that's. Okay, then we could add a logo. I don't know, like if everyone can be creative of making such a page live. Oh, doesn't appear. Where is that? I think it's probably something like it's an SVG image. Okay, I'll make a PNG out of that. Okay. I think you get the idea. What I intend to do is I intend to fill those pages with content over time. And I would love to see you create your own pages and also add your own content. Let's look at how you create content and how you put them in a tree that makes more sense. So one simple thing is, let's assume the list of ERPNext service providers would be a child page of what? I'll go to the starting page and create a new page that is called the ERPNext community. And this page only has a page tree. And I want this page tree to be sorted naturally by alphabet. It should be very deep, and it should start on this very page. Okay, so this is just a parent page for me. And now the list of service providers should become a child page of this page. So I can type on my desktop go recent GR, and as soon as I do that, it'll show up with recently viewed pages, and list of service providers was here. And then I can go on the three dots here and say move. And then I move this to a recently viewed page, which is the ERPNext community. And now this page has been moved. And if I click on the ERPNext community, it'll have a subpage already because I have the page tree. I can also go here, and a lot of those things should be part of should go on the community. To do that, there's also, if you're a space administrator, you can go to space tools and reorder pages. I think every one of you should be able to do that. Can you verify that? Can you go to this cog icon and click on reorder pages? Or is that only available for me? Anyone still there?
Yes, I just have go back to the page. I got the option 2.
Yeah. Okay. So you can do it as well.
Yeah.
So what you can do is, if you click on reorder pages, you can go through this tree and drag and drop things. So for example, I take list of Telegram chat groups and drag it to the ERPNext community. And the service providers go in here, and how does the ecosystem punish bad behavior goes in here. How does the bounty program work? And the ERPNext Foundation also belongs under the community. And maybe the bounty program should be part of the foundation. Onboarding links to relevant content at GitHub in the forum could also be part of the community. And then under the community, I could have a page called onboarding for new ERPNext users. And actually, I want to copy this page tree here. No, this here. Disclaimer for empty pages.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is there any reasonable way to go about a kind of approval process? So I often had the questions inside my company, how do I create the billing contact, for example? What is there to look out for? And I would notice, okay, to be able to decide who's going to be the billing contact and where it's chosen, it makes sense to know how and why to add a contact and what information is important at that point. And this is something I could pretty much lock down onto at a certain point and say, this is done. This is a good way of doing it. And is there a function on this platform to say, okay, this is kind of approved by however many people, to say this doesn't really need to be changed right now?
Yes, the answer is yes. There is an approval app. So there's a plethora of apps on the Atlassian marketplace. So we're using Confluence Server. Confluence. And so we have 829 apps that we could use. And the Komala document management offers workflows.
Mm-hmm.
The very, all of these things that you see here are for free for us, as we are an open source community and we are run by a charitable organization, the foundation. So all of these things are for free. The question is always, do we want to use them? And I would highly recommend not to use a workflow at this point, because our challenge is not compliance. Our challenge is contributions. And if we create new hurdles of workflows, and it is a hurdle, even if it's a simple workflow, then the main thing that I hated the most about this platform from Frappe was that my changes weren't visible. I even couldn't know whenever they would go live. And that totally killed my ambition to contribute, because it was not simple for me to write something and then share a link. And now I can just create a new page. This is actually something that I didn't change yet, that I didn't show you yet. Let me show you how to create a page. Let's assume you're at the ERPNext community and you want to create a new page. Then you can always click on create, or you can click on the 3 dots, and you will even get suggestions for templates that they have: a file list, a how-to article, meeting notes, health monitor, and those things. I usually start with a blank page, but I already know what I can do with Confluence. So if you're new, it may be helpful for you to use one of those templates. And then this new page, let's call this test page here, will become a child of the page you have been in. And if you happen to create a page out of nowhere, you can move the page to the appropriate parent page later, or other people will do it just like I did. And you can obviously also remove stuff by deleting it. Okay, we're coming to an end here, which is, especially my time is running out. Do you have questions, more questions?
Not at this point.
Does it have a linking option similar to GitHub where I can say @Martin Seibert?
Sure. You can mention people. You can link pages. You can like pages. You can comment on them. If you change a page, you will automatically add it to the subscribers of this page.
Mm-hmm.
You can deactivate this feature in the settings of the platform.
Mm-hmm.
But Confluence quickly becomes an active sender of emails to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that you will want to create a folder where Confluence emails get into, because they are both good and bad. Like at one point, those emails keep you in the loop of, for example, what I'm changing on these pages. At the same time, they may distract you from your daily business, and you don't want that. So what most users do is they create a folder where those emails go in automatically. And some even make them red so that they don't scream at them, read me, read me. But the way that you can get it into your email inbox is actually pretty helpful, because a lot of activity is sparked by those emails. So you see a change and you get a new idea. So you open the page. From the page, you open the app. You change the page with your idea, you hit save, and then I get an email. I open the app, I change something, you get an email, and it goes back and forth. And before long, although we're both on the go, the page has evolved into something that Rushabh will like, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yep.
Okay. Then thanks a lot. I'm pretty proud that we had so many people participate. That's helpful. I hope that you'll have some energy to change some pages in the future.
Okay, Martin, thank you very much. So just to summarize, my approach would be, as I said, I've already set up several platforms to do exactly this. Reason being, there's some documentation which is just internally, and I can not worry about making screenshots where there's customer data in there. There would obviously make sense to put it on a closed platform. And I would slowly take all that, which I can merge it onto this platform. As you know, I'm an IT service provider, and I would always do this from that perspective. So I would heavily focus on service providing projects, timesheets, those things I've been.
Yeah, Wolfram, in my opinion, it's also okay if someone contributes something, you can put a signature in there and say this text was provided by Tweet, and have a backlink to your page. I don't think that this is going to be a long-term thing that we want to have. But at this point, I would say if people need some recognition of their contributions, I'd accept that.
I mean something else at that point. And I noticed in the original documentation, it's I'd say you'd have to know the program already pretty well to use the official documentation.
Yeah, that you can bet.
Then you notice, then you'll find something out, then you'll go to the official documentation, and then you'll say, okay, I've understood what you've written down here. And my approach, I would just comment on, if you have an email account, what does it do? Where does it start? Where does it stop? How can I use it with notifications, with mentions, with all these things? And then just go beyond, like, use case, how do I communicate with a customer over ERPNext? Does the customer have an account? Does he not have an account? And go into these details.
any type of content that you add to the platform is highly welcome. I am happy to help you get it in shape and order. If you just spit your markdown chunks into the platform, it's going to be very valuable. And it's an easy thing for me to make sure that this, let's say, dispersed amount of content gets into a shape that new users find enticing and helpful. I think the most important thing that we need at this point is contributions. Anyone who can write a reasonable text about ERPNext, whatever it is, please contribute. Choose your language, choose your style. As long as you're helping the community grow and foster, we'll come and help you. I promise.
Okay, cool.
Cool. Thanks a lot, everyone. That's our first 90 minutes of ERPNext documentation.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
See you later.
Thanks a
Bye.
lot.
Bye.